Today, I am super excited to share with you the Midsummer Garden. It is so lush and it is finally starting to turn into a jungle. So come along with me and let's check it out. We are here in my Austin, Texas backyard, Zone 9A, and it's such a beautiful morning. I can hear a lot of wildlife. Hopefully you can too. I've got my baby weeping Santa Rosa plum tree. Its branches should eventually come up and over, weeping like a weeping willow tree. And surrounding that, I've got a bunch of sweet potato vines. And everywhere they touch the ground, they start forming more roots and spreading. So they're an amazing ground cover, and they make really delicious sweet potatoes. And even the greens are harvestable, edible to eat raw or cooked. And they're delicious. Over here is where we just planted more of the Mexican sunflower seeds. So it looks very empty now. They haven't come up yet, but above them are a bunch of the common sunflowers. These are native to our area of Texas. They make tons of little flower heads like 6 months of the year because our warm season is very long. They will die when it freezes, but hey, could be January, maybe before then, but who knows? Under the sunflowers, I have it shading some of our Tulsi holy basil. If you were with me on the basil tea video, or check it out, I have a video about drinking and making basil tea with you guys. Unfortunately, all of our bronze fennel seems to be dead, and it's really one of the only casualties of all that rain we got. My garden didn't flood. I mean, everything soaked in, but all 3 of my bronze fennels in different areas of the yard have just seemed to die. I think that it was too much water for them. That's okay. I'm going to start them again from seeds. Those I started from seeds as well. Okay, we've got a bunch of blackberry vines behind those. And some of the vines are dying, so I'll be cutting those back soon. And then we have a bunch of new vines growing. And, oh, here's a little butterfly friend that's just hanging out there for us. This is a eastern black swallowtail. And poor guy, I'm so sorry. They come and they lay their eggs on this plant. The bronze fennel is a butterfly host plant for swallowtails, the yellow swallowtails and the black swallowtails. And I love hosting their caterpillars each year. So it came and it already put its eggs on here, but unfortunately, dude, I think they dried up. But yes, a lot of the plants in the garden are butterfly host plants, or they might be something that attracts butterflies. Right here, we've got something called butterfly weed, and it is a native milkweed. And behind that, this is another native, lemon mint. It's in the mint family, and you can make tea. Our little Zen statue. A nice little reminder that, there's always going to be weeds, but just don't let them grow up around your dreams. And over here is my little doggy. Okay. So this really filled out. This is a native salvia, sometimes called blue mealy sage or Henry Dewelberg sage. And I made all of these plants right here by taking a cutting, actually taking a bunch of cuttings, and just sticking them directly in the ground. So these didn't even need to be put into a pot. They were able to grow from the stem, form new roots, and create new plants that come back every year. So that's how I was able to create this little hedge right along my patio. And that way it kind of creates these little rooms. So this is like a little patio room. And although it's not really a courtyard, I wanted it to have a feeling of a courtyard. Here's a little Anna apple tree. It's its second year. It's about 4 times as tall as it was when I planted it. And I've got 2 other apple trees. Over here, hiding in the sunflowers, is an Einsheimer apple tree. And over here in the corner, I'll show you guys in a minute, I have a Fuji apple tree. Now, what I chose were all low chill hour fruit trees. And what that means is, there are some apples that can grow here, but not all of them. They have to be able to flower with a low amount of freeze and cold weather in the winter. And then in the spring, they're triggered to start making their flowers and fruit without as many hours of cold temperature, if that makes sense. So if you choose a low chill hour apple, you can actually grow apples in the south. And here I've got tons of sweet potato vines grown. And behind them, some strawberries. Got a bunch of native Texas bunch grasses here. And some Turk's cap over there. Behind here, a little tomato. So soon, I'm going to be trimming my tomatoes so that they can grow more vigorously again for fall. So I will show you guys how to do that soon. But right now, I have really big, long, floppy tomatoes. And I'm right here underneath my fig tree, which I'm so excited to say is actually making figs right now. Let's find some. Okay, I might have to go around. It's growing figs. And yeah, I'm actually surprised because I haven't gotten many figs off of this tree yet. And maybe it's because we had a more mild winter this year. And because of that, I may be able to get some actual figs from this Texas everbearing fig tree. The black-eyed Susan coneflowers that I planted all over are starting to pop up. Hopefully those will get bigger and fill out over time, but those were just planted in the fall this year. More floppy tomatoes. Here's the Fuji apple tree, and I just planted this during spring break. Over here I've got a grapevine. In these pots behind it, I have a couple of jujube trees. Those are like a Chinese apple date, more Turk's cap. This is native here. So I've mixed a lot of native wildlife plants along with our other things. We're bringing in a lot of pollinators, which are going to pollinate your fruits and vegetables. So unless you want to hand pollinate them, which they do in a lot of greenhouses, etc., you've got to have wildlife. You've got to have the pollinators. So I am going to have some videos, and I do have one out right now about one of my favorite pollinator plants. Look for those. This is starting to get big. I should probably move this. Over here, I've got my little olive tree. It's going to take a long time to grow. I just wanted to make sure I didn't step on it. And next to that, I've got a little pepper. More black-eyed Susans. This is where we planted a bunch of amaranth in a recent video. If you want to go look at that. Amaranth is an ancient grain. They've been cultivating it for over 8,000 years. And I've got 6 different varieties there. We're going to see which seeds pop up and then do the best. And behind that, I've got big muley grass. It's not that big yet, but it's one of our Texas natives that I love. And next to that is a Mexican fan palm tree, also called a Washingtonia palm. It's tiny, but hey, it lived through winter, and so far it's made it through some hot weather and a lot of wet weather. And some of these leaves do die, but I've been cutting them off and more keep growing. It could end up being a nice tall palm tree as long as we don't get a very, very low freeze. It could live for a long, long time. Okay. Back in this corner, I have more of the mealy blue sage. This is the plant that I took all those cuttings and made that hedge by my patio. So it was just one plant that I bought. And now it's many, many plants. Back here along the edge, I can see I really need to cut back and cut off all of the dead growth on this tomato. And once I cut it back, it's just going to start growing really well again. So here it is down here. I'll probably cut it down to about there again and let it start fresh. And yeah, what else is back there? This tiny little moringa tree, I planted some moringa seeds. Haven't seen many of them pop up, but here's a little moringa tree. They don't live through our winter, but I can harvest the leaves until frost. I'm going to wait till it gets a little bit bigger first. And I like to dry them and make that powder, so you can make your own moringa powder, superfood nutrient, and add it to your food. Over here, where is it? I've got a tiny little passion fruit. Hopefully, eventually it'll get a little bigger. It's a vine that will make these amazing purple edible flowers, and then eventually, in a mild winter anyway, would make passion fruit. This is native to our area. There's a lot of different passion fruit, but this one is called maypop, and this is the native one. More basil. This is the Tulsi holy basil. And next to that, I've got lavender. I love lavender. Oh, it smells so good. Okay. Over here, I've got some gourds growing, a tomato that really, really needs to be cut back. Over here, I've got more basil. And I really need to clean out the bird bath. Poor birdies. There's a lot of algae in there. More little tomatoes sprawling around that I need to cut back. Some asparagus popping through. They're babies, so I'm waiting for those to grow bigger before they get harvested in a couple years, probably. And here's a grape. This grape is new from a few months ago. The mulberry tree. I've got some tomatoes growing up the mulberry tree. And soon in another video, we're going to make mulberry trees out of cuttings. Just got to trim the ends of these branches and show you how we can make more trees. Here's a pepper. We've got sunflowers, black-eyed peas. Here's an eggplant. Gonna need to be cutting back all of these plants from spring so they can grow again for fall. Here's another one of the dead fennels. I'm gonna cut it down and, there's a tiny bit of green on this one. Maybe it'll keep growing back. I hope so. Back behind here, I've got comfrey tomatoes growing up this trellis. The Mexican mint marigold is getting tall. It does eventually have yellow flowers. Fella, beautiful eastern black swallowtail. Look at that. How cool is it that I got to get so close to these? I see a yellow swallowtail. Stay right there. A black swallowtail with yellow. Hello, beautiful. How lucky am I? I get to just stumble upon you in the garden. And yeah, so this one's also a swallowtail, but as you can see, it's got different markings. It's got like little peacock eyes. Hello. But it's got blue instead of yellow. So in here, this yellow swallowtail is on the oregano. The black swallowtail is here on some Mexican mint marigold. And behind that we have rosemary and more Mexican mint marigold, which makes delicious licorice flavored tea. Ooh, my grapevine is growing pretty far over here. I'm going to be having it go up this trellis, but can probably sprawl a little bit around. It's been growing. Up here, I have about 20 asparagus plants along the fence. They eventually get to be 4 or 5 feet tall. And then these stems are what you harvest when they just come out of the ground, but they need to get thicker first. So then they would look like the spears that you would expect. Those start growing in January here and get harvested shortly after that. During the summer, you just let these grow so that it can get all of the energy from the sun it needs to grow its roots and make more again for the next year. So it can keep going for 20 plus years. How great is that? Plant it one time and get asparagus forever. And not only that, it's expensive at the grocery store. And if you haven't had fresh asparagus, you haven't had asparagus. It is so delicious you can eat it raw, right out of the garden. Okay, it's getting more and more jungly as we go over here. Got this elderberry growing up here. And these leaves look so tropical. So it's obviously starting to look like a jungle. And would you guess that I'm here in Texas? The beautiful sunflowers, more comfrey, grapevines sprawling everywhere. The beautiful American beautyberry is making its beautiful berries. Look at that. It's so gorgeous. They're edible. The animals love them. They're edible for humans too, and they're just so pretty. Can't bring myself to harvest them. Geez, look at that. And so not only is this a native, so is this southern or plateau live oak tree. And so often in nature and in plantings at places like Zilker Botanical Garden and the Ladybird Wildflower Center both have a lot of American beautyberries growing underneath their live oak trees. Over here, I've got a bunch of this native horse herb. It's got these tiny little flowers. Let's see, we can see one there. And this is a great native ground cover. We want to cover it as much as we can. This is a coral berry. It doesn't have any berries on it yet, but this is native. I've got a whole bunch of weeds growing, nice tall grasses. I don't really want all of these seeds, so I'll try and pull off the seed heads. But it's not a big deal otherwise. It's still covering the ground, so until I'm ready to replace it with mulch or a plant, it's kind of okay. And over here, the oak tree is trying to have a lot of babies. It wants to sprout more trees so it continues to live. These oak trees sprout these trees from the ground, from their roots, as well as new seeds from their acorns. And so they form a lot of these groves of live oak trees. So when you see a whole bunch of trees together, you'll often see one big one in the middle, and that's the mama. And these are the babies. And I will be cutting most of these down. I might let a few of them grow, but there's not room for all of them anyway. So she just puts out as much as she can because, it's a numbers game for her. Most people just mow those down with their lawn mower. But if you want more oak trees, you can let some of those grow. Make an oak grove with some American beautyberry bushes underneath it. Over here, here's another one. Behind here, I've got a pepper, still growing some tiny little peppers. Those will start to produce a lot more again in the fall when it's not quite as hot. But they're enjoying the shade. They don't really want to be in the full sun here in Texas. Even plants that say full sun do not want full sun in Texas most of the time. I'm just telling you. And it also depends if it's afternoon sun or morning sun. That makes a really big difference. So morning sun is good. Afternoon sun, unless you're a really tough native plant, you don't want it. It's too much. It's too much for me. It's too much for them. Okay, I've got some tomatoes I need to harvest before they go bad. But hey, if they fall on the ground, maybe I'll get some extra free tomatoes that might grow from their seeds at whatever point. This jalapeno here has some ripe jalapenos. We'll go ahead and pick those. Once they're red, you can dry them out. If they're green or have any green on them, they won't dry out, so you can go ahead and just eat those. Back here, under this sunflower is a tiny little filbert or hazelnut tree. And we've got another grape back here, some tomatoes that are overgrown, some of which have made their way up and over the redbud tree. So that's great because I do want the trees and the sunflowers and things like that to be like a trellis for a lot of the plants. It's just going to grow like a jungle from now on. So this redbud tree is a Texas redbud and it's native. And it is a bean tree, a legume. And in the legume family, they fix nitrogen, so it will add fertilizer to the soil and then help the fruit trees around it. So we've got a fig and an elderberry right on that side of it. And then I've got the grape and hazelnut tree right on the other side. Right here, I've got also one of the native honeysuckles growing up, and I went ahead and twisted the vine up so that it could grow up the redbud tree. Over here is a fig that I created from a cutting. So it's still pretty little right now. Another elderberry. These are native to our area. I got them from the Texas Ladybird Wildflower Center. Twice a year in the spring and the fall, they do a plant sale. So I definitely recommend going to that if you're in the area. Another fig I created from a cutting. This tomato is growing up the elderberry a little bit. Here I've got some ginger growing. And behind that, the turmeric. If you've seen this in another video where I showed you it was so small, it's gigantic now. It blew up right after all that rain. Right next to it is a pineapple guava tree, or feoja. Makes beautiful fruit that tastes like a banana and a pineapple combined. Behind that, another fig I made. And then another elderberry. And then if you remember from some videos, I talked about growing vines up and over this tunnel. And success, it is covered. There's room for more still, but hey, I've got these black-eyed peas just hanging. I've got my little lights. I've got my hammock. And I made my little shady spot for the summer. I love it. It's only going to get more jungly. Here is our Santa Rosa plum tree that we pruned together in one of my other videos about keeping your fruit trees small by pruning. And now it's got some vines growing up over this sunflower. We've got more black-eyed peas growing over and going around and up the plum tree. Okay, let's hop the fence. Oh, I'm getting stuck in the vines. They're wild now. Ooh, so shady under here. So much nicer. Okay, let's get a view from the outside. Here it is, beautiful. You've got sweet potatoes and black-eyed peas growing up this. These are the sweet potato flowers. I said before I thought they looked like a trumpet, but you know, I think they look a little bit more like a French horn. What do you think? Let's see. Let me get up close. Beautiful. So those sweet potatoes can be harvested in the ground after the greens all die, way into the fall. They can stay in the ground for about 6 months here because we've got such a long, hot season. I've got another pineapple guava tree. I've got my Arctic frost mandarin orange tree. Most of these trees are fairly new, so I haven't gotten fruit off of these yet. And I hope you stick around for when we finally get fruit and I'll be able to taste it and let you know how it is. Down here, I have a bunch of natives, some autumn sage. We've got a native flame acanthus in a gold color. These are hummingbird magnets, especially the red ones. Over here, some flame acanthus. It's not blooming a ton of flowers yet, but it will soon. It really likes the heat. This is a Mexican sage bush. Smells amazing. It'll make flowers a little bit later in the season. And a dwarf plum tree. And we've got some zinnias below. A lot of these are going to need to be deadheaded, and I'll do a deadheading video with you guys soon. I'm gonna freshen up these flowers, these beautiful pink, peachy ones over here. And one of my other favorite plants, last but not least, is the Greg's mist flower. The butterflies love this one. It is a native to our area, but I'll show it to you later when it's more in bloom. Have a great week. I look forward to talking to you soon. We've got lots of projects to do in the garden together. I'll see you then.